Co mají Britové rádi na monarchii? Jaké je obdržet řád z rukou princezny Anny? A co princ Edward ocenil při návštěvě Prahy? Pojďte se mnou podívat do zákulisí života lidí s modrou krví. Je tady královský deník Elišky Gáfrikové. Od roku 2023 působí jako velvyslanec v České republice. Celý svůj profesní život zasvětil práci pro vlast a korunu. Mnoho příznivců si získal také svým osobitým způsobem komunikace na sociálních sítích. Pozvání do královského deníku přijal britský velvyslanec Matt Field.
So it's an honor you've accepted our invitation and you've joined us, Mr. Ambassador. How long did it take you to learn to sing the words God Save the King instead of words God Save the Queen in the national anthem?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm delighted to have the chance to talk to you. It's a really good question. I still think there's a part of my brain that always expects to say God Save the Queen. I think it will still take me a while, but of course I have plenty of practice now with God Save the King. I have to get used to it.
And is His Majesty King Charles III different superior or boss than Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Of course, I mean, it came as a great change to all of us. I think almost everyone in the UK and around the world has grown up with the Queen. And the moment of losing her, of course, is a moment of great sadness. We appreciate the great service, the life that she'd led, and then we had to get used to a change that we weren't really expecting or prepared for. But no one could be better prepared for this job than King Charles. He's had his life knowing that he would be taking over from his mother. And you can see he's really spent that thinking carefully about what's important to him. And you can feel those changes with him now as the king.
And what changes did King Charles bring about as a monarch?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely some changes of emphasis. So as Prince of Wales, he was actually one of the very first people that started talking about protecting the environment. So it was always very important to him. Even as a young man, he was talking about our need to respect nature, pay more attention to it. And he's continued that throughout his life. And now as king, this has been part of his emphasis. He also talks a lot about the focus on young people. This is an area that he cares a lot about, to continue that good work from his parents as well. And then also you can see some of the changes maybe in the coronation ceremony itself. So it was actually a little bit smaller than the previous coronation for his mother. I think it was 2,000 guests instead of 8,000 guests. Of course, many more were watching it on television, but I think that just suggests his sort of interest in trying to streamline things, make them a little bit more focused and efficient.
You have you noticed any changes in the exercise of your office with the new reign of King Charles, or is it the same?
Yeah, so it's a funny feature of my job. So actually, he is my boss. You're right. I'm His Majesty's ambassador to the Czech Republic. Before I came here, I was ambassador in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I was Her Majesty's ambassador. And I got to meet her as well as him. So it's a change, but there's a lot of continuity as well. Many of the same things. I'm a public servant. I serve the government that the British people elect. And our job is to represent the UK as best as we can. And that's what I continue to do today. So that is the same as it was before.
As you already mentioned, you have dedicated your entire professional life serving Britain and the Crown. Do you think it's a different kind of responsibility than, say, have people working in private sector?
Yeah, I think one of the things that appeals to me about being a diplomat, and the reason I wanted to do it, was a sense of public service. So I wanted to contribute to something bigger than myself. And actually diplomacy has been an amazing opportunity to do that. So I've worked in a number of different countries, and always felt very proud to be a representative of the UK. At the same time, I think we can represent our countries in lots of different ways, and that includes within business, within civil society, as journalists, as soldiers. There's many different ways of public service, and I think a sense of community and contribution is actually very consistent with what the King wants from all of us.
We've already talked about the new reign of King Charles III, but there are also changes concerned about Prince and Princess of Wales. Princess of Wales herself informs about her health condition, which is something quite new, as well as when she hugs Holocaust survivors. All this used to be quite unacceptable until recently. And the future royal couple obviously do not want their pedestals to be so high. What does this mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you have seen those changes. And of course, that's how the British royal family has remained relevant for hundreds of years, is because it does change. So with each new monarch, with each new royal family, with each new generation, there are differences in emphasis and approach. I think you're exactly right about the Prince and Princess of Wales. They want to try to be normal people as much as possible, and they want to spend time talking to people and listening to them. They take their children to school in the mornings, and they try to involve their family in that public life. We saw this recently. The Prince of Wales was in Estonia visiting British soldiers, and he also wanted to visit a Ukrainian school. He wanted to talk to lots of people and listen to them and have as much interaction as possible. So I think you're right. I think there is a change, but it's also one that each generation makes the royal family different. I'm glad you mentioned about the health side as well. That was obviously important, that she was willing to share that personal detail to help others. But the King himself has also done this, and he's talked about his own health issues. And I think for many people, that's an inspiring and important message.
Czechs have fallen in love with your social media presence. You are not afraid of humor. But are you allowed to publish something with similar humor about the monarchy or the royal family?
Yeah, so I've always felt very welcome, and I feel very lucky to be here as the British ambassador, because I think because of the associations between our two countries, I think it's a huge head start to be ambassador here in a country that you're so welcome. I think one of the things that makes us welcome, one of the things that connects us, is our sense of humour. So sometimes I say that Monty Python could be Czech, Yara Timmerman could be British. So I think we have that in common. We understand each other's humour. And actually the humour in the royal family is quite possible to combine them. And you can see that because the royal family has done it itself. So you think about the London Olympic Games and the famous opening scene, which took everyone by surprise, with the Queen and with James Bond, and what seemed to be the Queen jumping out of a helicopter to start the games. I mean, this is a sign that even our royal family doesn't take itself too seriously.
Mr. Ambassador, it's time for modesty aside moment. You've received OBE, Officer of the Order of the British Empire. What does that mean to you, and how does it feel to receive an order from the hands of the Princess Royal?
It was a really special day. So I was surprised, first of all, when I heard about it. It's not something I expected or something that I knew that someone else had nominated me for. So it was a surprise. It related to the work that I'd done, particularly in Bosnia and Herzegovina, for service to foreign policy and representing the UK. But I also think it was an opportunity for me to say thank you to all of those who helped me along the way, particularly my family, so my parents and others. They were very proud, and of course it was my chance to say thank you to them. And then on the day, I got to go to Windsor Castle, and that was special because I could take my wife and children with me, and so it was another family event. To receive it from the Princess Royal, who is someone I've always admired. She's a great Olympian. She's a great example for us of public service as well. And also on that day, there were a lot of other people, of course, receiving their awards for very different things. So you might have doctors and nurses receiving awards for their work during COVID, members of the military who'd been serving overseas, volunteers in communities, all kinds of people were there, and it felt remarkable to be part of that group.
And does the OB comes with some responsibility or some?
Yeah, so it doesn't come with special privileges, or at least not that I found yet, but it does, I think, make me even more conscious of that sort of responsibility of public service. I think it's a recognition, but it's also an opportunity to make a difference in the future as well. So I try to carry that responsibility with me in everything that I do since.
As you already mentioned, you used to work in Bosnia, and you've spent many years in foreign countries. Maybe with this distance, you are better able to assess the transformation of British society. How has it changed when we compare the reigns of King Charles and Queen Elizabeth II?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good bit. It's a tough question because, especially with Her late Majesty the Queen, her own reign covered a period of such enormous change. When you think that her first Prime Minister was Winston Churchill, and she was very young, of course, when she became Queen, that enormous change through the second half of the 20th century and into the 21st century, British society changed enormously. The creation of the Commonwealth, modernisation, all of these things that we lived through. So her period itself saw enormous change. And then you think going into the new reign of His Majesty Charles III, I think you can see great challenges. So we've seen with the war in Ukraine and other international crises that have been happening, how difficult the world is. But it's also a time, I think, in British society where we feel unity of purpose in terms of support for Ukrainians, or also meeting these other challenges that we face. And that's what makes us optimistic. And it's also part of the role that I think the British royal family plays, where they help to bring us together and give us that kind of focus to unite us.
Mm-hmm. Even as voices calling for the end of monarchy grow louder in recent time, it's even feasible for the monarchical system, which has been entwined with the United Kingdom for the hundreds of years, to ever end?
Yeah, so I think the monarchy would end in the UK if the British people decided that's what they wanted, and there continues to be very strong support. You're right that there are some voices who are against it, but I think that's healthy. I think that's part of living in a democratic country, is that I don't think there's any subject that you could get all British people to agree on, but still the majority of people support having the royal family. There was a moment, I think, with the transition from Her late Majesty the Queen, where some people wondered whether this would be the end in some way. But actually you've seen great continuity and new energy brought into the institution. He is using that role very wisely and very energetically. And so the momentum has been maintained through that. And I think we'll see that with future generations as well. Ultimately, the British people will decide if they want something different, but for the time being, the strong majority is in favour of keeping things the way they are.
And what do British people like about the monarchy?
Yeah, so I think it is that having that sort of symbol and focus. I think it gives a sense of continuity through history as well. So the fact that you can look back for nearly 1,000 years through our history, through all our different kings and queens, and you do feel that kind of history and continuity. At the same time, I think people also like that they change. And the way that, for example, William and Kate have approached it, with different emphasis, with a different approach, as you mentioned, maybe quicker to be open in the way that younger generations are. That, I think, is what continues to maintain the positive feelings towards the royal family. But it's also, we're saying this isn't only about the British people. I mean, the royal family, in many ways, is an international symbol. I'm reminded of, I thought it was a lovely message from President Macron when Her Majesty the Queen passed on. He said, to you, she was your queen, to us, she was the queen. And I think that sense of global recognition of the royal family, I think, is very important still.
And on the other hand, why do you think people dislike the monarchy?
Well, I think there's questions from people, of course, about an inherited position, the fact that it's hereditary. In a democratic country like ours, sometimes that does raise other questions. Of course, you have alternatives. There are heads of state that are elected in other countries, including in this one here, the Czech Republic. So there's questions about that, or there might be questions about the cost of maintaining the royal family. But I think when you do the actual calculations of cost and benefit, I think the case is very strong. And you think about the soft power impact that the royal family has around the world. This is something that's very special and not something you could easily replicate.
You've already mentioned that people appreciate a different approach from the Prince and Princess of Wales. So do you think when there will be a new reign of the King William, or the name he will choose, the voices calling for the end of monarchy will stop?
So I don't think I would expect them to stop. Because I think there'll always be people who have a different opinion about the right way to set up our country. And that's fine. We always welcome different opinions. We never expect everyone to agree on everything all the time. You will definitely see a change of emphasis, as we've seen with the transition to this king. But I don't think that's something to be afraid of. I think that's actually part of what keeps the royal family relevant, is the fact that it changes and new generations have new interests and new ways of approaching this institution. You've seen it already with one transition recently, and I think we would see it again in the future.
We've talked about the popularity of the late Queen, but I think that also for the people in Czech Republic, many of them admire British monarchy. But have you ever heard some rumor or funny information about the British people or the country or the monarchy here in Czech Republic, which is completely untrue?
So it might not be fair to call it a rumor, but it's more of a question that I get. So people in this country who feel very strongly and very connected to our royal family are regularly reminding me that Charles, now the king, has not visited this country in a while. He's been here 5 times, I think, on official visits. And so people have been asking, well, when's he coming back? He must be coming back soon. What's the date for a royal visit? And of course, no one would be happier than me to receive a visit, but I often have to disappoint them with the truth that at the moment we don't have a firm timeline for another visit. I wish we did. I passed on the invitation. I know President Pavel did the same when he went to London for the coronation. I like to joke sometimes that, Charles should certainly come because there's a bridge that's already named after him. There's a university that's named after him. He has all of these things named after Charles. So I would be very happy to see him come.
Yeah, so we will hope it will happen one day, maybe.
Me too.
For many people living outside the British monarchy, it can be quite tricky to understand all the traditions, royal protocol, and all the things about the royal family. Do the British people know this?
Again, I think that's really fair. I think there's many things about sort of royal protocol that British people don't know. And but also I think when people do interact with the members of the royal family, I think they're often surprised at how relaxed they are, or how relaxed that they want it to be. So the focus for members of our royal family is not really on protocol. It's much more on how can we have a direct conversation with people in a way that they're relaxed, in a way that they're able to have a positive experience. So I think about, for example, when I was invited to Windsor Castle for the award that I received. Yes, there were some instructions. You get the guidance that comes with you about what you should wear or the right way to address people. But there was a real emphasis on the day on getting everyone to relax and enjoy the day. It was a special day. People in Windsor Castle wanted you to have that great experience and that great memory, not to feel constrained by protocol. And I think that's the kind of experience that people usually have with our royal family.
You've already told us how great it was to meet Princess Royal in Windsor Castle. Do you still feel nervous about such meetings? at the end, most people know these people only from the TV, and you've met them in person.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's anything that that will compare for the rest of my life with the experience of meeting Her late Majesty the Queen. So again, I was very lucky, as her ambassador to Bosnia. I was invited to Buckingham Palace in that case, and in a room not much bigger than this, with 2 or 3 other colleagues, and with my wife Martina. We had the opportunity to talk with her, and it was amazing. This was someone I only knew from television, who I only knew from history books, and to have the opportunity to talk to her was an amazing experience. I was nervous, but I was really impressed also with the way that she felt very human, and the way that she spoke to us. So that's a memory that I'll treasure. I don't think I'll ever feel quite that nervous again, but that's because it was a pretty remarkable moment.
Wow, that's amazing. So perhaps it's not inappropriate to conclude by asking which member of the royal family do you personally like the most, and if you could have a beer with any of them completely informally, who would it be?
That's another tough question. So actually, I can draw on one experience that I had. Not long after I started as ambassador here in the Czech Republic, we received a visit from the new Duke of Edinburgh, so from Edward. And he was here to promote the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, which is this young leadership program that we have all around the world. And here in the Czech Republic, I think there's nearly 10,000 young people who are involved in it. A fantastic program. So he was coming here to promote the program and support young people. And he was due to meet the president, President Pavel, and President Pavel invited him for a beer. So he went to one of the local pubs, and I was able to join them. And so I've actually had a beer not only with a member of the royal family, but with the president of this country at the same time. And that's a pretty tough experience to top. I think that's something I'll always remember.
And did the Duke of Edinburgh like the Czech beer?
Yes, he enjoyed it very much. And I think if he has the opportunity to return the visit into the UK, he'd be very happy to take the president for a beer there as well.
So we will hope for that. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.
Líbil se vám dnešní díl? Pro další zajímavosti o britské monarchii sledujte Královský deník Elišky Gáfrikové na webu deník.cz.